The following program does not have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Lawgic. I never had a show start with this before. This is a first. This is a first in my show history. I'm not going to kid you. This is a first in my show history, and it's the first time. It's the first time that I'm actually starting a show with someone who's making a request for me to raise a shot for a loved one. So I had to do that in order so you guys basically get my so I'm gonna open on a bit of a somber note, I guess. Let's Go Brandon says this is a weird show title. 101 years ago, someone close to me was born, and 1 year to the day they passed on. If you almost start on time, which I did, so pretty almost. And I don't mean I started on time. I mean I almost started on time. So raise a shot glass and cheers to all. For you, my friend. I assume that this is an ancestor, but I don't know that it was. I'll share this thought with you. Something was in my glass there. I'll share this thought with you. What is something floating in there? Why does it look so cloudy? It's so weird. Something's weird. So I'll share this thought with you, Mr. Lesko. One of the things that we don't appreciate when we start early in life, we tend to only appreciate it as we get older. But then anyone who lives long enough comes to realize is that the universal human experience, irrespective of race, religion, or anything, our ultimate goal here is to try and find some way to establish some level of permanence to the fleeting nature of our lives. We all know that our time here is limited. And I've said before, I've used the term legacy as what we leave behind. And we're all trying to establish some level of legacy. Now, legacy has three technical definitions. It could either refer to one's own children, one's own reputation, or the money you leave behind. Those are the three terms: legacy. And all three of those are referencing what impact we're leaving behind on the world. And we all fight to establish legacy in one manner or another. And the purpose, I think, in that, and I don't think this is a very hot take at all. I think this is pretty common sense if you think it through. The purpose of that is to try and establish some sense of meaning that our time here has had meaning. And whatever legacy we leave behind, whether it's through children or a reputation for doing good things, doing positive and having a positive impact on our immediate circle or far more extended circle, is that, or even money that can help benefit others, is that we are sort of, it validates our existence as having some sort of impression. Now, I don't know anything about this individual who you're referencing. It might be an ancestor of yours. It might not be. But I do know this. Far too many people, despite having numerous trips around the sun, end up feeling like they fall short in their legacy. And that causes a loss of meaning to their existence. So I don't know the individual that you're referencing here. It may be a relative. It might be someone who you just came to know. Doesn't really matter ultimately, because here it is a year after their passing. You're raising a glass to them and remembering them for the impact that they had on you, which means that this is an individual whose legacy mattered to, if no one else, at least you. And that's a life worth celebrating. Somebody who's able to make an impact on someone in such a positive way, that's a life worth celebrating. So to them and to you, wish you only good tidings, personal growth, and blessed memory for all of us. Well, that was good. I didn't skim. No skimping. Okay. Let me get back into it. Let's do it. Let's do it. No one's bringing down a room. I was celebrating their life. That's not bringing down a room. No one's bringing anything down. We'll get this out of the way before we jump in. Hello, brother. Term limits are wild in sheep's clothing. The answer is informed electorate, not restricting the people's choice. Change my mind. I'll change your mind. I'll change your mind. Human nature is to try to be naturally accepting of whatever it is that you've grown accustomed to, no matter how awful it is. So you don't tend to appreciate how terrible things are, because that's just the way human nature is. We're not changing human nature. And to have a fight against human nature is a losing battle, as the left learns every single time. Every single time. With every one of their stupid, let's invent something brand new, like fluid genders. It doesn't work. So you're saying that, like, human nature, we should change minds. You're fighting such a losing battle. Joe, I sent you a DM via Twitter. It's a must read. Say goodbye to Mr. Smith. Really? A DM via Twitter? I don't see a DM on Twitter. Wait. Oh, here it is. Did you see this? Okay. Against my gut. This is against my gut instinct. I will share this. We'll see what it's only a minute and a half. Why does he never have pants that are long enough? Like, why does he wear capri pants? I don't understand. Look at him. It's like a clown suit. Off. Look at those big shoes.
So as you can see, we sent that over to DOJ, IP hold it, CIA ID, that's the whistleblower, that is President Jack Smith conducting this campaign to do it.
Am I the only one who can't hear anything? Am I the only one who can't hear?
Okay.
I heard one word there. Start with horse. That's what I heard.
We'll see about that.
right, what do we got here? So you want me to click the link? Listen closely. He nearly defecates himself. He yells, "That's horse." Referring to a copy of the whistleblower complaint against the alleged Jack Smith extortion operation that I handed to him and his staff. Here's a copy of the complaint if you want to read it. How long this? I can't. This is gonna be long, isn't it? Oh my gosh, it's 118 pages. You're just throwing something at me here that's 118 pages. That's not a $5 super chat. A whistleblower. Let's see what the letter says. I can read the $5 is a letter. That's what it is. It's $5 is 1-page letter. You gotta be real here. We're gonna do like this whole thing. That's like 1,000. Dear Mr. Horowitz, enclosed with this letter is a whistleblower complaint being filed by my client John F. Moynihan. Copies of the complaint are also being sent to the Inspector General of the United States, Department of State, Inspector General of the CIA, Office Inspector General of the Intelligence Community, Office of Professional Responsibility, United States Department of Justice. Moynihan, a former employee of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, is a recognized expert in the areas of money laundering and financial investigations. This complaint is a result of his investigation into the allegations contained therein. As stated in the complaint, your office and the offices of those copied herein is most suited to further the investigation into the claims of the affiants as compiled by Mr. Moynihan. Please what? Why would you need Nadler? He's not in charge anymore. Oh my gosh, it's 100 pages. Ongoing work in a case done as employment. Summary allegations. Spoken multiple witnesses, okay, who have firsthand knowledge of extortion rings set up by the Kosovo Specialist Chambers, an EU initiative ratified by Kosovo's parliament, signed affidavits attesting to the facts outlined herein. Mr. Jack Smith Esquire is an active participant in a scheme that extorted millions of dollars from wealthy individuals targeted for investigation and or prosecution. Smith served as a specialist prosecutor from May 7, 2018 to November 18, 2022, at which time he was appointed by U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland to serve as special counsel to investigate former President Trump. So he's been extorting people? That's essentially what it is? He's been extorting? That's what this thing is claiming? Yeah, I'm gonna have to look this over on my own time. I can't start going into this right now. This looks like it's like a whole show, and I'll see if it's worth doing a show, and I'll definitely do it. But I can't just just drop what I'm doing right here and start covering everything there. That would be crazy. Monk, how you been? For your daughter, Chag Sameach, Achi Umazal Tov. Thank you. That means happy holidays and congratulations. How well do you remember Talmudic learning? I have a question. I remember it fairly well. With that which I covered. I remember fairly well. If you're going to start asking me what it, about a particular machlokas on Daf Yud Tes Amud Beis and Gittin, I'm be like, I don't know. But you can try. You can try me out. I'm wearing a BP monitor. Let's see what you do. My blood pressure. I hope you're okay, Worcestershire. What are you wearing a BP monitor for? I hope you're okay. You have to look out for yourself. Wolf, it says, if people refuse to change minds, we deserve what we get. No, we don't. No, because you see, that's saying, oh, okay, well, since human nature is that way, so F people. That's ridiculous. That doesn't make sense to me. Obviously, limiting governments, it doesn't matter as much, but elite will just buy the newly elected. Okay, well, they can buy anyone then. By that logic, you shouldn't care who gets elected. They'll just get bought. What if we pool our money together? You can pool. I'll take money pools. I prefer Venmo. But yeah, I'll take money pools. Happy Hanukkah, Joe. Just dropping in to leave a like and some love. That's so thank you, Triple T. And some love to one of my favorite people. You never disappoint. Oh, you're too kind. That's really fun. That's really kind of you. All right. That's way longer on the I'm loving the early super chats. It doesn't happen that often. Not like that. All right. You guys want to start with Satan or with Satan's minion, legal? I think we should probably start with Satan. We should start with Satan. Okay. So it starts with this. Let's start with Satan. Satan? Iowa governor calls satanic display inside the Capitol building absolutely objectionable. This is terrible. This is terrible. This is awful. This is terrible. That's what he says. It's terrible. This is satanic display. If you're visiting the Iowa State House, you might see a holiday display set up by the Satanic Temple. It features a ram's head covered with mirrors on a mannequin cloaked in red clothing. Lucian Greaves, co-founder of which that can't be his real name, right? Lucian can't be his real name. That's just like too close to Lucifer to actually be real. Lucian Greaves. I think he made this name up altogether. Co-founder of the Satanic Temple. Yeah, he's a co-founder of Satanic Temple. You can't be like, oh, grieving and Lucifer. It's not possible. I don't believe his real name. If it is, that's crazy. Lucian Greaves, co-founder of Satanic Temple, says this satanic display is a symbol of their right to religious freedom. And I actually put a poll up before I started this show. I haven't checked on the poll yet. But I put a poll up on YouTube asking, do you think that satanic worship is protected? Do you think that should be protected? That's considered protected worship. And we're going to hear from a well-established conservative as to his thoughts on it. A well-known Catholic. We're going to really relish the opportunity to be represented in a public forum. We don't have a church on every street corner, Greaves said. Greaves said, if you don't like it, don't look at it. All right. Let's go check in on that guy. His name is Michael Knowles. I didn't get all the way through the video.
If you happen to be in Iowa this week, you can catch a satanic altar put up on display at the Iowa State Capitol. This was put up by the Satanic Temple. The co-founder of the Satanic Temple says this is a symbol of the Satanists' right to religious freedom. Of course, Satanism is not entitled to any rights whatsoever, and the Founding Fathers certainly wouldn't have thought so. And
how do you know that? I don't know how he knows that. And I want to be clear here. I'm still sorting through. If you think that I have like an agenda as to where I'm going on this topic, I'm going to tell you, this is one of the rare times where I'm starting a topic and I don't have any agenda at all. I'm really parsing through this in my brain.
No.
But I do feel like his answer that he gives, I don't agree with. And I'll walk you through why.
No one, even the great defenders of religious freedom, not so long ago would have ever defended this, but this is now what religious freedom has taken to mean, that you can have a symbol of Baphomet or the devil on display, and you have a right to that in a government building. The founder of the Satanic Temple says, we're going to really relish the opportunity to be represented in a public forum. We don't have a church on every street corner. My feeling is that if people don't like our display in public forums, they don't have to engage with them. They don't have to view them. Okay. If you're a normal person, you probably have a problem with this.
And that part I actually agree with. I think most normal people do have a problem with it. I think that most people, when they see this, they're like, this is really messed up. This is really freaking messed up. I think certainly most religious people. I don't know about atheists. I'm not a spokesman for anyone, but I don't know how they would tend to land on this. But I think that I think he's right that most people be like, this is pretty freaking messed up.
Now, some of you might not. Some of you might say, oh, whatever, it's dumb, it's silly. The Satanic Temple, they're just a bunch of edgy Reddit tier atheists anyway. Who cares what they want to do? I don't like it. I don't want my country to exalt satanic symbols. I think that's bad. I don't want shrines to Satan in my government buildings. I think that's a bad thing to do and doesn't speak very well.
Shrines to Satan in a government building.
All of our country, and I want it out, and I want to ban it. And this would not be a new ban. This would be reinstating a ban that existed for the entire history of our country until approximately 5 minutes ago.
Was there really a ban, though? Was it just it wasn't there, or is it a ban? So ban means you're not coming here because we're not letting you come here, as opposed to you just weren't here.
I think that would be good. I think that would be normal and American and right. Now, you might look at that and say, well, it's okay. It doesn't really matter. I don't like it. It seems wrong, but hey, religious freedom, right? So then you got to ask the question. If you know this is wrong, but the premises that you have about religion and politics lead you to saying that this is fine, how do you reconcile those things? One of them is it can't simultaneously be good and bad. So which is it? How do you reconcile your natural opposition to Satan statues in our state capitals with religious freedom?
I mean, that's a fair question. That I think is a fair question. So I do think most people find this objectionable. But I am curious. Let me see how my poll is going on this. Should we pull up my poll? Let's see how my poll is going. Pull this up here. Wow. 80% of you saying it's obviously covered under the First Amendment. 6% saying it sounds messed up. 9% saying no, it just ain't, and 6% saying I have no idea. I'm surprised. Now, so far there's only 137 votes. Usually I end up getting a few hundred votes. See over here, I got 367, 240, vote 661. But 80%, that's a very unusual. That's an unusually high number. You see, I never get numbers like 80% down here. All right, let's see. Let's hear him some more.
You can either say, yeah, bring it on. Bring on the satanic altars. Let's put them in all of our state capitals. Let's bring them to Washington, D.C. You can either say that. Most of you probably won't think that. Or you can totally throw out religious freedom, which some of you might want to do, but it's probably not very practical in America. Or there is a third option. The third option is you can circumscribe what religious freedom means, not merely on your own preferences or, a naked political power grab, but you can set limits on what religious freedom means through tradition, informed by reason. You don't need to just pluck it out of thin air or have it be a matter of your own preferences. You can say, look, here's what religious freedom has always meant in America. It's never included opposition to God. It's
what it's always meant in America. Why it's always meant in America? I don't think the founders had based on what was already established in America. So that's the first mistake I think he's making.
Never included. It's included broad religious toleration for different people who worship God in different ways, but it's never included opposition to God or outright denial of God. That was just really never part of it. And so we're not going to allow that. No Satanists, no atheist altars, none of that. We can have a broad amount of religious toleration without saying that you have a freedom from religion or freedom to worship the devil in the state capitol. That's what you can do. Libs should love this. Libs love saying that no right is absolute until they want their Satan statues in the state capitol. Then all of a sudden the rights are absolute. Your First Amendment right's not absolute when you want to talk on a college.
That's true. That's true. They'll talk out of both corners of their mouth.
College campus and you're a conservative. Your First Amendment right's not absolute when you want access to the public square on social media.
I can give a proof that he's mistaken in what he's said so far already. And the evidence I'll give for that is the Church of Mormonism. Now, I understand the Church of Mormonism. Mormons would probably say it's consistent with Christianity, but it's founded by, Smith in Utah in the 19th century, long after the establishment of the Constitution. So that was not an established religion. So those people who look at Mormonism as a different religion, which I'm sure that would be a fair percentage of people that look at Mormonism as a different religion, obviously that was not established in America. So by his argument, the Church of Mormonism should not be protected. Now, I'm not saying I disagree with where he wants to land. Like emotionally, I kind of want to land where he lands. Intellectually, I'm struggling to use his means to get there. I don't see how that works at all. I don't see how that works. And sometimes we'll see a conflict between our mind and our heart. I don't see how Satanism is any different from the Church of Mormonism, unless you want to try and establish that Church of Mormonism has etchings rooted in Christianity, but the Church of Satan might claim that, hey, we come from biblical sources, that there is such a thing as Satan. So, and we transmorph that into Satanism. So, in that sense, it does have Judeo-Christian origin. And the concept of there being a Satan is Judeo-Christian, right? I mean, there was Satanism, there was the existence of Satan. It goes all the way back, to Torah. Not that it's expressed there, but certainly we have, Jews have a recognition of the existence of a satanic figure. Not that he should be worshipped, but that there is such a thing. So when you say so once you say that Mormonism, which is a changing of, it's a modification of original Christian perspective, and that, I think everyone, I've never heard of anybody who disagrees that Mormons are entitled to Christian protections. I don't see much of a distinction. I think it's difficult to draw a philosophical distinction between Mormonism and Church of Satan. I think he's going to struggle to find a way to draw that line when he's saying, let's go on what's historically acceptable. And here's another question I would ask to you, Michael Knowles, which is, what about Greek mythology? What if a whole sect of people come along and they start saying we should be worshiping Zeus, and I want to see Zeus up in my local place, or I want to see Apollo, or Roman mythology, and start engaging in Mercury and Jupiter and all these different gods that our solar system is named for. Someone starts screaming, I want to see Saturn and Uranus in my local government. What are you going to say to them? Oh, because it's not rooted in American history, it's more European history. These are very difficult lines that I think he wants to say this is what philosophically makes sense, but I don't think it philosophically works. I think he's struggling here. And when you're struggling to try and shove your bedrock perspective into some new sort of shape, it doesn't usually go well. And I don't think it works well for him here.
To say your conservative points of view. Your Second Amendment right, oh, that's never absolute. You're only allowed to have a musket. You're this right, you're that right. But the
which, by the way, on that, how many liberals do you think would be like, oh yeah, we're totally okay with everyone having muskets? I've never heard anyone argue that they're okay. They pretend that they're totally okay with, like, oh yeah, fine, everyone's allowed to a musket. Yeah. What if they start selling muskets? What happens then? They can be okay with that? With everyone owning muskets? I don't think they will be. My gut says, they're not going to be okay with that either. Muskets for everyone. And you get a musket. And you get a musket. And you get a musket. Oh my God. Where's Oprah when we need her? That'd be amazing. But coming back to what he's talking about here, let's let him go on.
Supposed right, never really articulated in American jurisprudence.
And I want to be clear, I don't dislike Michael Knowles at all. I happen to like him, and I respect him. I think that over here, he's allowing his emotional perspective to control his mind.
Political philosophy to have a Satan statue. That's the one that is absolute. No, of course not.
And there's a better argument that he should be making, and he's not. And I'll get there probably when I finish with him.
Of course not. I don't think that the Satan statue falls under any serious conception of freedom or religion. Religion is a habit of virtue that inclines the will to give to God what he deserves. But even if you do, even if you're a little confused on what freedom and religion mean, how about we just avail ourselves of history and reason and tradition? That's what tradition's about. It's not about just blindly giving up your own ability to think and have your own opinions. It's just allowing your opinion to be informed by every other smart person who ever lived. Don't you think maybe there's a chance that every other smart human being who ever lived for all of history might be able to teach you something that you haven't just figured all of it out better than all of the other smart people? Well, there it is. Welcome to traditionalism. There it is. Well, you're a conservative. Wonderful, wonderful to have you. We got to talk about these things. When you want to talk, you got to check out Pure Talk.
No.
Right now, go to puretalk.com/Knowles. Pure Talk with this conflict. Over to Pure Talk today. Unfortunately, there's a state representative in Iowa, Representative John Dunwell, who seems like he means well, but you can see him grappling with this conflict between we don't want to worship the devil in our government building.
It's not, because it's not that simple. It's really not that simple. I mean, and the way and your approach to it is actually very flawed, as I pointed out. I mean, you don't see many Zeuses. You don't see many Zeuses. And I say, fortunately so. I say, fortunately so. I personally don't think that if there was an increase in the number of Zeus, what is plural of Zeuses? Zeusai? Zay? Z? I don't know. You don't see a whole thing of him sitting up on the throne of Zeus. And by the way, personally, I believe that's a good thing. I think that polytheism is actually terrible, 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 awful, 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 terrible, 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 awful. I could say that for the next 1,000 years, and it would be insufficient. How terrible polytheism is. Really terrible. There's no, the English language is constricted with an inability to actually label how awful polytheism is. However, despite how awful and terrible it is, the reality is there's nothing in the Constitution which really distinguishes polytheism from anything else. From monotheistic religions.
Things, but we got religious freedom, and he doesn't seem to figure it out. So he has this very, very long post about it on social media, and he vacillates. He says, well, as a follower of Christ, I think this, but as a state representative, I think this, but as a follower of Christ, I think this, but and it's so long. I didn't even read the whole thing because
the answer
he's just twisting himself into knots.
The answer is staring you in the face, and it's not traditionalism.
The first error is to think that you can actually separate yourself into little compartments. You can't. You can recognize that you have certain duties and certain circumstances, but to say...
Let me get to a couple of these here. Long story short, Sanhedrin talks about Mumchim, which was OG Smicha. Did it disappear due to persecution or exile movement from the Holy Land? When you say Smicha, I don't think you mean... Do you mean with a samach, smicha? Means the way you spelled it is joy as opposed to experts, which is smicha. I think you mean samach mem chaf rather than sin mem ches, which will sound similar, especially if it's being said by an American. But you probably meant smicha as in like smicha, like when we like put our hands and like make someone part of the rabbinate. Did it disappear due to persecution or exile movement from the Holy Land? That's a historical question. That's not a Talmud question. That's a historical question, which I don't know the answer to. So I'm not going to hazard a guess. Like why we don't have mumchim means experts, in case you're wondering. So long story short, Sanhedrin, which is a tractate of Talmud, talks about mumchim. The Hebrew word there, the first Hebrew word he wrote there is pronounced mumchim, which technically translates into experts, which was OG smicha. Now, the way he wrote the word smicha here in Hebrew, the second word there is read as smicha. The way he wrote it there, I don't know, he might have had problems with transliteration or whatever, has the root for the word joy, but that doesn't make sense in context. And what would make more sense is a word that sounds very similar, but is spelled differently and with different Hebrew letters, which means smicha, which is what we call when we put our hands on someone and ordain him as being part of the rabbinate. Now, which would be more consistent with what the rest of the sentence. So he's asking whether experts, mumchim, disappeared due to persecution or exile movement from the Holy Land, and I'm answering that. That doesn't sound like a Talmud question. That sounds more like a historical question. I don't know. Government space. You welcome one religion, you welcome all. It's covered under 1A. Boston flag case is most recent. Okay. Why are they allowed inside a government building? They have a right to exist, but the government would not allow me to hang up my witch's flag in the government building. Okay, so it's another great one. Wiccans, okay, which they've been around for a while now. Are Wiccans allowed to put their stuff up? What happened to answer your question? This is a good legal question. Lily Smith is touching on here. When government buildings started putting up religious symbolism, usually around this time of year, Christmas time. So they would put up religious symbolism in the form of manger scenes or Christmas trees or things of that nature. So then there was a whole question that was raised. This predates my existence on this planet. There was a whole question that was raised as to whether this is, institution of a religion by the government. Here you have a government building. It could be a school, it could be a government house, and this is you're instituting a religion. So how did the Supreme Court deal with it? They said, well, it's acceptable as long as you have symbolism for other religions as well. This way you're not promoting a religion, you're just you're allowing for various religions, and now you're not promoting a particular religion. The Supreme Court has ruled, I believe, I want to say it was Lemon case. Is it the Lemon case? It's my recollection. I'm going all the way back to law school now. I think it was Lemon. I'm remembering another one with a C or a K, Katzen or something like that. Lemon. Just SCOTUS. Lemon v. Kurtzman. Is that the case? There we go. Well, it doesn't predate me, but it predates my interest in law, that's for sure. The Supreme Court for nearly 4 decades used the 3-pronged Lemon test to evaluate whether a law or government activity violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. However, by 2022, the court had largely abandoned the test as a way to measure compliance with the First Amendment prohibition on government establishment of religion. In 2022, Kennedy v. Bremerton, case involving a high school football player coach's group post-game prayers, the authoring Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch ruled instead that the Establishment Clause must be interpreted by reference to historical practices and understandings. This is consistent with what Michael Knowles is trying to say. Gorsuch believed the lower courts had created a vice between the Establishment Clause on one side and free speech and free exercise clause on the other. He associated such conflict with the 3-part Lemon test. Cases that challenge whether law on practice violates the clause in the First Amendment prohibiting the establishment of religion often involve direct government aid to religion, such as aid to parochial schools, etc. Lemon test came in 1971, so it's around when I was born. To measure when a law went too far in the Supreme Court's landmark decision, they represent the refinement of a test to the Supreme Court announcement in Walls v. Tax Commission. And can you give us the prongs of the Lemon test? Character and purpose of the institution that benefited, the nature of the aid that the state was providing, and the resulting relationship between government and the religious institution. That's the test. Character and purpose of the institution, nature of the aid that the state was giving, and the nature and the resulting relationship. It's a tough test to really wrap your head around. I actually always personally struggled with trying to understand exactly how it was supposed to work. Just my opinion. If you believe in the devil in any way, you should slap yourself silly. Michael Knowles needs a little potch. That means spank. That's Yiddish for spank. Very disgusting because these Satanist freaks always do these things during Christian celebrations. Well, to be fair, this ties into what Lily was saying, why they have a right to put it in there. So once an Iowa state building is putting up Christmas trees. So what you will invariably see, and we see if you look around different buildings that have stuff, frequently they'll put up a little menorah. They'll have like this massive Christmas display and a tiny little menorah. And that way they're showing that they're giving to all religions, that they're recognizing all religions and not promoting Christianity particularly. I have said in the past, and I will forever, I believe, say, I expect to forever, for the rest of my life, say, I don't need your freaking menorah. I appreciate the thought. I appreciate the gesture. But if they happen to leave the menorah out, I'm not bothered at all. I'm not bothered at all. I don't consider the establishment religion when there are Christmas trees up. I don't think that's any problem with that at all. I don't look at it as if it's our government basically saying you will worship Jesus. I don't look at it that way. I don't accept that that's what our government is doing. I recognize that our government is run by people, and most people in this country are Christian. And if they want to celebrate Christmas, by all means, by all God, they should. They should. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with if they consider it part of their enjoyment of their holiday. I think anyone who stands in the way of that is a schmuck. It's like, grow up. Who cares? Why are you letting this bother you? That's my personal perspective on it. That's not my personal perspective. Is not consistent with the law in this country. The law in this country is that you have to recognize other religions. Once that is the established law now, so you can understand why at this time of year, in response to you, Kelly, that's why it comes up this time of year, because this is the time of year where governments start recognizing religion. Because of Christmas, so they start recognizing religion. And once they start recognizing religion, so then because of the law of the land in the First Amendment, they feel obliged to make reference to Jewish holidays as well. So, and now the Church of Satan is coming along and saying, well, you should be obliged to recognize us during this time of year as well. That's why it comes up now. And I agree with you. It's gross. I think it's disgusting. I think it's stupid. I think it's so stupid. I actually think it would be better. Well, you know what? You want to know what would be better? Is if they have a month of if a better exercise, a better display, a better way of doing it would be like, okay, you know what? If they have a month of like, if you feel like there has to be some sort of like, I don't know, equal time or something stupid like that, I would say, you know what? Make December all about Christmas. Make a different month about Islam, a different month about Judaism, a different month about Satanism. And this way, it's like you don't have to start moshing everything together in some sort of like ridiculous collage of multicultural religion. It's so stupid. It's so stupid that no religion actually, no one in their own home would ever have that entire scene going on. It's so stupid. So why should our government be forced to do that? If anything, I think that I agree with you, Kelly. I think it would be better. I was like, take the freaking menorahs out. You don't need a menorah. You don't have to do it. I won't be offended. I won't be bothered at all. I'll talk to the Jews. We'll pass on it. At least the ones who actually recognize Judaism as a religion rather than just some sort of DNA test that they can throw out there whenever it suits them. So yeah, I'm on board with you guys. Michael knows, like any other Catholic conservative, the perspective that you don't have constitutional rights unless you're a Christian. He does come across that way. I'm not going to kid you. He does. But I don't have a problem with that. Like I can still respect that. I respect that. I'm like, okay, like that's what he sort of wants to look at things from his own perspective. I just don't think that it's intellectual. It withstands in intellectual scrutiny. Imagine a state capital had big star David mezuzahs all over its doors. What would Michael say? We know the left would love that. Yeah, well, and here's the thing. I'm not asking for that. I wouldn't love that. I wouldn't love that. The mezuzah is what Orthodox Jews put on our doorposts. It's a tiny little piece of parchment which has a paragraph from Torah, basically proclaiming essential beliefs of Judaism. It's a one paragraph segment. And like unfurled, and they write it small, so unfurled, it'll be like this big, and they roll it up and then put it inside a little metal thing or whatever, and sometimes we bedecked in a way to look pretty, and we put it on doorposts. It's called mezuzah. So what would Michael say? I cringe every time I hear people screaming for Jewish things to be like thrown out there front and center. Stop being so freaking insecure. Stop being. I'm not saying that you're being insecure. I'm not saying you're being insecure. You're fixating. I know, Master Phillips, that you're fixating on the hypocrisy of Michael. So I don't want anyone to take it as if I'm saying you're insecure. I don't think that's it at all. I think you're trying to just display Michael's hypocrisy here, which is true. He is being hypocrite. There is hypocrisy in his position. I assume the religion of the Constitution is a reference for people of good conscience, which is how the Constitution is framed by. Well, you're getting closer to where I'm going to be coming. Everyone has this wrong. Look at Wiki for Satanic Temple. They're not a religion. They're an activist group, not Anton LaVey Satanists. Okay, but what if they were Anton LaVey Satanists? What would be then? That, you see, Grifter, you're focusing on what the issue that's standing here in front of us, as opposed to the overall issue as to on this particular case and how it's manifesting in this particular case. But we have to sort of examine for like what's going to come tomorrow, what potentially will come tomorrow, where it might be some Anton LaVey, who I was told from the day I started streaming that I look exactly like Anton LaVey. I mean, I've heard this many times. Most notably from Eric Hunley, he believes that I am a reincarnation of Anton LaVey, and there I am starting cults. Ponder this question: Lost in law? Is the freedom of religion a protection of culture rather than the corporation of organized churches? Can expand if you need. Protection of culture rather than the corporation of organized churches. I'm not sure. I know what you mean. Please don't start talking in Latin. I'll try to avoid it. It should not be allowed in government buildings. Separation of church and state, by the way, no witches' flags here in reality. I know, I understand that you were just speaking in the hypothetical. I get that, Lily. My point is, the problem is that with the Supreme Court, with the finding that, hey, if you give religion to everyone, it's okay, is that there's literally tens of thousands of religions. Like, where does it end? It's so stupid. I mean, they happen to pick the Judaism alongside Christianity, and it's really like Christianity and Judaism. And my point is, I don't need the Judaism. I don't need any part of it. I don't need it at all. I don't need it. It's okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. You know what? I don't think that Judaism is going to suffer in any way, shape, or form. Any way, shape, or form. If there's 6 weeks of massive celebration of Christianity, like you know how much, like, zero suffering, zero. So just grow a pair and just say speak fact. And fact is that, you know, Christian decorations and the trees and stuff like that, when it's done tastefully, is really pretty. It's really pretty. It really looks nice. And God bless. And people are happy. And that's an amazing thing too. We need more happiness in this country. My God. Stop getting so petty. Like, what about my religion? Let's just stop it. Oh my gosh. Easy solution is you lease the space for display. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I'm not sure if that would work. I don't know if they can lease out spaces in these government buildings. And what do you do in schools and stuff? It's Knowles aside, explain to me how the Establishment Clause means Jesus haters get equal time, because I don't think it does. Christianity was and is not American. Our government didn't establish it. I'll come to it. We're getting closer to my perspective on this, which I'm sort of along there with you. Well, we're coming closer there. Constitution says no established church. They knew the words synagogue and mosque. We have to ignore 200 years of history to pretend the founding fathers were secularists at all. Yeah, but I think the word church is used congenially. I think church is used to mean religious institution. I don't think it's meant to be exclusive to Christianity. I think that I don't agree with that read. I think that church includes mosque. I think church includes temple, even if it's a Buddhist temple, which Buddhism is evil to, or a Hindu temple, which Hindu is evil to. That's my personal perspective. The Hindu is evil. Terrible, awful, terrible, so bad, terrible. All right, let's go back to Michael. And I'm getting closer to giving my perspective.
Suggest that you are multiple different people and you can totally divorce your moral views from your political life is just completely insane. Politics is how we all get along together, and all laws legislate morality. So here's what he says. He says, my response to the Satan statue as a follower of Christ, my response as a state representative, my observations and response as an Iowan state representative and pastor. As a follower of Christ, I certainly find a display from the Satanic Temple objectionable. It stands in direct opposition to my faith and would be classified as evil. Not a new experience for me or my family. The Word of God continually warns about the dangers in our world. In fairness, many other religions or non-religious people have the same perspective about Christianity. Put a pause right there. Yeah, they do. They're wrong. They're wrong. You say X is good, Y is evil. Other people say Y is good, X is evil. One of you is right. And you can't just shrug your shoulders. One of you has to be right.
Yeah, but making that call is what's making it a violation of the First Amendment. This is what Michael seems to be lost on. His argument would work equally well if you wanted to say anything that's not Christian is illegal in this country. Because, you know, if you don't believe in Jesus, you're wrong. That's what he would say. I said that would be his take, which is clearly not what the First Amendment is meant to say. So making the call is where government is not able to make that call as to who's wrong and who's right. And this is why this is the massive flaw in his thinking. Because you're going to live together and you're going to enshrine good things in the law, and you're going to prohibit bad things in the law too. That's what law does. So you can't just say, well, you know, look, my perspective, right? Where does your perspective come from? Is it completely uninformed? It's just a reflex of your mind, a contortion, a gesticulation. It's not informed by reason. No, it's informed by reason. You think it's true, and so you're going to broadly follow that. Yeah, it's a good idea. It says, my observation as an Iowan and a state representative, I don't want the state evaluating and making determinations about religions. I'm guided by the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And that individual is correct. He's right. The state is not allowed to make the call. That's the point of the First Amendment. First of all, are you? I don't know. The First Amendment was never understood to enshrine Satanism. So I'm not sure that you are. You're enshrined by... It's definitely not meant to enshrine Satanism. It's not meant to enshrine any religion. That's... Mike. A liberal revisionist view of the First Amendment. But even here's a more basic question to Representative. It's not a revisionist view. You're just not fixating on the right part. You're not fixating on the right part. This is why you're getting it wrong, Michael. You've done well. And I don't mean to single him out. A lot of people think like this. Are you a Christian first or a liberal first? I mean a lowercase L liberal. I mean the classical liberal. I mean whatever good kind of liberal you can think of. That's not the proper analysis either, because the state has to be liberal in the classical sense, not the Christian part. What are you first? Are you a Christian or that? Do you serve God first, or do you serve some political ideology called... Everything he's saying now is basically an argument that you should only have Christianity in this country. And that's the problem with what he's saying, which is clearly not what the First Amendment is saying. Liberalism, which is it? When they come into conflict. Man cannot serve two masters. Which is it? Not hard for me. I talk to Christians. I talk to religious Jews. I talk to Muslims. There's broad agreement, I think. And I have no problem with someone putting their religion first. That's fine. But you can't put your religion first. You know, that's when you're sitting in judgment over this as to what's properly legal. Among people on broadly how to serve God in public life and how to have a good society. I don't think the same can be said of liberal. Look what liberalism's done. It's alienated people. Now you're making an argument that religion is better than political perspective, and you're probably correct about that. But that's not the laws that we're operating under. People from their society, it's led to a kind of skepticism where even a guy who calls himself a Christian pastor says, "Well, I don't know. Some people think Christianity is evil, so the state needs to lay off it." I mean, the man's this is a politician, and he's very sad. It's not very sad at all. It's not very sad. He's actually doing his job. Sometimes doing your job is not doing what your heart tells you is what it's supposed to be, but it's doing your job. Michael Knowles would support, I assume, the decision or at least recognize the validation of the decision by General Robert E. Lee to value his state over his own personal ideology. A lot of times men are called into that perspective, are called into that task of doing something and standing up for something they don't actually personally believe in. And I do that every day here. We all find ourselves in that role, and Michael is completely wrong. But there's another answer here. There's another answer. There's a better answer, which would actually support his perspective. It would have been the better way for him to go. And here's how you do it. Here's how you approach it in a far healthier way. First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. This is what we're fixating on, the very start of the very First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And I guess we're talking about prohibiting the free exercise thereof. You have to really ask yourself, what is religion? What does that mean? What does the word religion mean? What did it mean to the founders? What were they talking about when they said this? And the answer to that he's failing to distinguish here, when we're looking at what is religion, religion is a worship of God. That's what it is. It's a worship of God. However someone chooses to worship God, Congress is prohibited from doing anything that would inhibit the free exercise of their worship of God. Satanism is promoting, specifically, as far as I understand it, the fight against God. That is not worshiping God. It is actually a fight saying God should be overthrown or doesn't exist or something of that nature. But the reason it's called Satanism is because basically it's a struggle against God. That is not what religion has traditionally meant. So when he's talking about traditional religions, even if they weren't here in this country, would include Greek mythology or Hinduism, or Hinduism we recognize here, but it would, and that's why the Church of Mormonism is something that is entitled to protection under the First Amendment, because it's a form of worshiping a being who created us and who is, overseeing and has dominion over the planet. So citizens of America who wish to, any American who wishes to worship God in whatever way they choose to worship God, Congress cannot make a law that stops them from doing that. However, if they're restricting people from fighting against God, there is nothing in the Constitution that prohibits that. And Satanism, clearly, the whole point of Satanism is that it's a fight against God. So that's not protected by the First Amendment. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. And that's why atheism, denying the existence of God, doesn't have First Amendment privilege either. Because the whole point of free exercise of religion is the promotion of belief in God and worshiping God in whatever way that individual so chooses. That's what establishment. So they're not making a law establishing how it's going to be done. You can choose whatever way you want to. It can be Christianity, it can be Islam, it can be Judaism. It could, and I guess in theory, be the very, 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 very terrible, 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 awful thing of Hinduism or Buddhism or whatever it is. In theory, could be Zeus, as terrible as that is. Greek mythology is, or Roman mythology. But anything that is purporting to be fighting against God is not something that's established, that's protected and is granted First Amendment protection. It's really that simple. And I don't know why Michael is sitting here saying, well, traditional religions versus not. That doesn't even make sense. Doesn't, and it's inconsistent with what we've seen happen in American life over the last 2.5 centuries, where the Church of Mormonism springs up out of nowhere in the 19th century, and you have millions of people who are following it. And they clearly, that was started, what, 70 years after 60 years after the Constitution was written? So it couldn't be something that was well established in American culture. And yet everyone recognized that's entitled that's completely entitled to First Amendment privileges. And that was a proper decision. I'm agreeing with that decision wholeheartedly. I'm simply saying, but that's a distinction between, that's a key distinction between Mormonism and the Church of Satan. So that's my take. Protecting a Christmas display while refusing a satanic display is protecting Christian heritage rather than protection of Christian churches, a practice of culture over an expression of faith. Okay, but what if it was an expression of faith? Would it no longer get its, would we not be allowed? There's nothing in the law that seems to delineate that distinction that you're drawing here. You know? Let's say somewhere in the New Testament it said, and you shall have a Christmas tree in your home on December 25th. Would it then now not be something? Would that change it rather than from like cultural to religious thing? And therefore not be something that could be allowed in a state building? I don't think that's true. I haven't seen anything in the law that supports that perspective. It's an interesting distinction you're making, but we just haven't seen that. Government has 3 spaces for rent. Whatever religion is willing to pay most for space gets it. So, what a capitalist answer! What a capitalist answer! Oh my God! What a freaking capitalist answer! I love it. Look, whoever can put up the most money for it, that's who we're going to get. So you're basically saying like the Church of Money is going to win. What if it's something that's like, what if it's something that's pornographic or promoting like, human sacrifice? Which, by the way, that's a tougher question, which my perspective would really struggle with. Well, at least in this end. You can probably find other ways around it. They have to be establishing recognition of human life. But let's say you had some sort of tribal perspective that was saying, when you have a religion that's rooted in having literally human sacrifices, would that have First Amendment protection? The way I'm defining religion, it would at first blush seem to have that. We would probably ban the human sacrifice element to it, but that would be like a freedom of speech if they wanted to actually promote it. These are tough questions. These are tough philosophical questions. Dernis says the King of England is the head of the Church of England. Established church means church, Joe. I think you're mistaken. I think you're mistaken as to how it's used. I think you're very much mistaken. I don't think anyone. No, I've never heard of any Supreme Court case which basically said that church means Christianity. Even though I recognize the fact that the term church is commonly associated with it. But as when we talk about, first of all, there's nothing let's look back at this for a second here. You're fixating on the word church. The First Amendment doesn't even use the word church. There's no word church here. So whenever you see that we're talking about church, it's not in the Constitution. So when it's just people using the term church to refer to as a religious institution. When we talk, there's nowhere in the Constitution that uses the phrase separation of church and state. That's a term of art that was devised well after the Constitution was drafted. So you're arguing with me about like what church means, and ultimately the argument doesn't even matter because it's not part of the Constitution. Lawson Law says, I love these questions. The issue violates our sense of right and wrong, but codifying in the letter of law is hard. We become smarter in pursuit of truth. Amen. I totally agree with you, Tim. Totally agree with you. Knowles wants the Constitution only to apply to Christians, meaning generally live how he wants. He and others want government to enforce their way of life. Yeah, I agree with you. He would never have displayed the nobility that our founders displayed. He would never have displayed it. He stands behind it now, but he would never have displayed that nobility. I have such sights to show you, says. That's a whole bunch of Hebrew letters. I don't think they mean what you think they mean, because I don't know what the heck they're saying. I recognize the word God. So reading it from the way Hebrew is read, which is from right to left rather than left to right, it says, Odin Elokai Yanu Odin Echad Shma Es. And then it's abbreviation for Gimel Vav. I don't know what it's supposed to be saying. So I don't know what you're trying to say. Sorry. Joe, your view on Satanism is they're worshiping an anti-God. What if they believe Satan is their God? I don't know what that means, because the concept of the phrase Satan is opposition to God. So what does that mean? Otherwise, it's just God by a different name. Shalomang! Why do you say Hinduism is evil? I think polytheism is evil. My personal belief that polytheism is evil. And I believe that Hinduism encourages polytheism. I think it's evil. That's a personal perspective. That's a religious perspective. That's rooted in religion. So Judaism, and Torah teaches that polytheism is evil. And I figure Torah knows better than I do. So to answer, that's the best answer I can give you. It's basically it's a refutation of the existence of God, because God is a single entity rather than a multiple entity. So you basically start breaking God into parts. That's basically it's. And this is not a legal perspective. This is a religious perspective that I'm giving you. But if you start breaking God into parts, that's a diminution of God, which is an affront. So, does freedom of religion trump free speech and association? It shouldn't, and vice versa. Well, the First Amendment basically lumps them all as one big thing. It kind of rolls from one to the next. The freedom of religion means that you have to have freedom of speech. So, and freedom of association, like the ability to gather together. So I don't think where are you seeing that there is a conflict between them? So I don't think that this plays into that. Personally, I have to point out Missouri had an extermination order against LDS until 1989. What is LDS? I'm missing something. LDS. Oh, Latter-day Saints. I don't know how they got away with that. Is that really true? I don't know how they got away with that. I don't know enough about the Latter-day Saints to know. Oh, that's Mormonism. That's what it is. Oh, so your point is that it was something that sort of supports Michael Knowles. That's got to be something traditional, and that's why the Latter-day Saints didn't have that protection. That's an interesting thing. I was unaware of that. It's an interesting thing. That's an interesting question. Wait until everyone learns that Christmas trees are satanic. I do think that Christmas trees started as an homage to paganism. That was the origin of Christmas trees. I think that's pretty. I don't think anyone really argues that. There was a lawyer in Miami who won a landmark case for Centauros over the rights to dump their animal sacrifices in public, who has argued for decades that ritualized human sacrifice is First Amendment protected. And look, it's easy to say that it's First Amendment protected, but I mean, because everyone wants to try and get the broad protections of First Amendment. So let's assess this for a moment. Okay, and let's think this through. Okay, so someone believes that killing a human is their form of worshiping God. So the Supreme Court has dealt with this in the past, where you're talking about things that break laws that that Congress can step on. And I think they applied the Lemon test to this sort of issue, because there's multiple situations where this issue is something that's come before the Supreme Court a multitude of times. There was one case out in the Southwest where Native Americans wanted to use peyote, and that was a banned substance in the state. There was another question with respect to some I think a Jewish guy who wanted to be able to wear a yarmulke and while he was in the Air Force, but that was a violation of regulation of dress code. So this is an issue which has come up a multitude of times, and by and large, when they're doing the examination as to the validity of the law and the ability to ban these sort of things, they basically say, they do analysis as to the origin of the law. It's then the overall purpose of the law, and whether, and this is part of what I think we had the Lemon test. I don't remember what the case was in Lemon v. Kurtzberg, but the question basically being is the objective of the law to try and suppress a religion, or this is just an objective we have, and now this religion says, well, we don't want to have to follow that law because that's against our religious practices. So now when you're looking at the law, we're basically saying this law is here because this is how we need to function and operate. And now this religion X wants to say we're not bound by that law because that's a violation of our religion. Well, then we're going to say, like, look, if there's a purpose behind this law which is logical and is beneficial, and it's not designed, it's not being created with an objective to step on this religion just because it happens to abut against it and knock out some sort of practice of religion, that's not going to change that's not going to make the law all of a sudden something that's a violation of the First Amendment. So when a state says we don't want anyone in our state to be smoking peyote because we think it's unhealthy and dangerous, whatever, for all these different reasons that we don't want them smoking that, now some religion says, well, that's part of our religious service. It's not that they were saying, oh, this is not targeting the religion. That's just a general law they have for the welfare of society. So to the human sacrifice argument is going to fail there as well, because clearly, the state has an interest in keeping humans alive, and saying that it's still illegal, even if that happens to be a religious practice, that's not going to be something that's going to fly in court, because it's going to fail on that test. Now, the interesting question comes as far as, like, okay, let's say we're not allowed to actually practice it here, but we want to promote the religion. I want to be able to actually tell people about this religion that involves human sacrifice. Which, by the way, that's terribly evil. Terribly, terribly, terribly evil also. Really awful. Really awful. But what about their First Amendment rights to promote this religion, even if they're not allowed to practice it here in this country? Now that comes into a whole freedom of speech issue. So I guess maybe that's why Wiki earlier was asking me that question, as far as what happens when can I promote a religion that's illegal to practice here? And I do think we should in that sense, I don't think out of freedom of religion, but out of freedom of speech, we have to be careful before restricting that. As evil and gross as it is. Good question. Good comment there. Thank you. Perhaps you should write a letter to Iowa's government office and explain the difference to them. Is that much? You think? Explain to them the difference between promoting God versus fighting God. Separation of church and state comes from a letter from Jefferson delegates in Georgia, where he advises against making Georgia a Catholic state. Oh, is that the origin? I appreciate you looking that up. Okay. That's not what's in the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't use the term separation of church and state. Satanists believe Satan is their God, is my point. And my point is, I don't think that makes any sense. You see what I'm saying? Because it's basically the overthrow of God. That's what Satan is by definition. Well, I'm not going to start researching Satanism right now. Term separation should say comes from Jefferson. It's not a new term. I didn't say it's a new term. I know it's been around for ages. I'm simply saying that's not the language of the Constitution. To know what the founders meant, we look at what they did. There were references to God all over government buildings. Right. Precisely. That's precisely true. I mean, look, the preamble says they're endowed by their creator with capital C with certain inalienable rights. There's a recognition of God that comes everywhere. The different streams of Satanism. I don't think the Church of Satan actually believes in Satan. I don't know. Church of Scientology became a religion in the eyes of the government by being an a-hole to the government and inserting their own people into the government that was regulating them. I don't know anything about the Church of Scientology. Yeah, I think that's related to Dianetics, which had a lot of advertising when I was young, and that advertising seemed to stop one day. What was the name of that guy? What was the name? Who wrote that book, Dianetics? I'm forgetting his name. What was his name? L. Ron Hubbard, yes. That's right. Thank you. All right. So that's where I think Michael Knowles is wrong. And I think that he has much stronger basis to make his claim against this particular foe. Whether they're working against all foes, I can't tell you. But that's more, to me, it's much more consistent with what we've seen historically in this country in respect to dealing with religion. Now, he does have, I guess he's closer towards saying what Justice Gorsuch says. We look into traditions, but I don't know if Gorsuch was saying that in dicta, if that's actually part of like what is actually common law. Joe, you're inserting your viewpoint to the definition of who is God, not allowed under First Amendment. No, I'm not, Allegan. I'm not inserting that at all. I'm simply saying that just saying something is that the point to freedom of religion is that religion is recognition of God. That's what it is by definition. The Supreme Court ruling that allowing Christian symbolism amounted to First Amendment violation was a mistake. Having nativity at Christmas makes no law. And I agree with you on that, Ryan. That's another reason I thought that was a mistake to say that if you have a nativity scene, you have to put menorah up there. I didn't think that I agree with you wholeheartedly on this. I don't think that's that's establishing a religion. So I was here. I don't think that's establishing a religion. I mean, the counter to that some would say, which I disagree with, is that you're spending government funds on something that is promoting a religious viewpoint. So, yeah. Separation of church and state was to protect religion, not the state. That's true. It was designed to protect the religions that are not being promoted by the state. So, I mean, that's really when we're talking about separation of church and state, is because we're afraid the state is going to be establishing a particular religion. But again, There's nowhere in the Constitution that says there shall be a separation of church and state. Doesn't say it anywhere. And the reason I brought up the phrase is because Derna was debating with me about what church means, and I was saying church means globally, but as I thought about it more, I was like, church isn't even in the Constitution. 162 over 100. Damn legal eagle. I don't know what that means. Oh, your blood pressure. I'm sorry. Breathe. You're supposed to be exhaling as you pull the trigger. All right, let's do Legal Eagle. It's time. It's time for Legal Eagle. So the Legal Eagle video that I wanted to fixate on. Where are you? Here you are.
Free speech warrior Elon Musk sues to stifle freedom of speech.
No. Not to stifle freedom of speech. You're starting off. You're like 10 words in, and you're already mischaracterizing this.
Again, Elon Musk filed his thermonuclear defamation lawsuit against Media Matters after the media watchdog reported that advertisements could appear next to racist or offensive tweets. The problem is he forgot to sue for defamation, but that's just the tip of the iceberg of legal problems in his latest anti-free speech lawsuit.
Tell us about it, Devin. Tell us about all the problems here. All the problems. Cover all the problems, Devin.
Not see that coming. Yes, when Elon...
Oh, ha, 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 ha. I see. You threw the word in, not see that coming. You see what you did there. Very clever. You're very clever.
Musk purchased Twitter in 2022. He met with representatives of several civil rights groups to discuss how the company would do content moderation going forward. Musk had vowed to make Twitter a bastion of free speech, and that had made many people nervous that he would allow banned accounts to resume posting. Musk promised to start a content moderation.
Because then what?
Council to determine what happened to banned users. However, he didn't form the council, so the civil rights groups called on companies to pause their advertising on Twitter. Corporations like General Mills and Volkswagen stopped their advertisements.
Volkswagen. Really? Volkswagen. All right. Okay. I'm very woke of you. And I guess that's what the VW stands for. Very woke Volkswagen.
Musk blamed the Jewish Anti-Defamation League for a 20...
Why do you say Jewish Anti-Defamation League? Why do you say it like that? Stop trying to invoke this whole he's an anti-Semite type of thing. The Jewish Anti-Defamation League. I consider that a slur when you use Jewish in that context. It's a slur. Trying to basically, because what is he doing? He's doing what Ginos do. He's trying to like invoke that because it's Jewish now. That's why it's that much more of an affront. Go to hell. Stop trying to use my religion to make your stupid political talking points. I can't stand that. I hate that.
$2 million drop in ad revenue. He then gave general amnesty to suspended Twitter accounts and fired most of the employees who were tasked with monitoring hate speech. He also dissolved the
because they had no purpose anymore, and because hate speech doesn't exist.
Trust and Safety Council that had been formed in 2016. When the ADL reported that hate speech had increased on the platform,
there is no such thing as hate speech.
Musk said it was a lie and that hate speech impressions were down.
There's no such thing as hate speech.
He promised that the @safety account would begin sharing data, but the account only shared the data once. In March of 2023, the @safety account said that the company was defining hate speech more narrowly by evaluating slurs in a nuanced context of their use.
There's no such thing as hate speech.
Now, whether it's hate speech or offensive
there's no such thing as hate speech.
The First Amendment protects hate speech from government censorship, but private...
Because there's no such thing as hate speech. That's part of the whole thing.
Actors like Elon Musk and corporations can make their own decisions about...
To bend the knee. They can make their own decisions to bend the knee.
What they want to say.
To a bunch of activists on the left.
That has nothing to do with the First Amendment. So as the owner...
That's true. That would have nothing to do with the First Amendment. That's legally accurate.
of Twitter, which is now X, but I'm still going to call it Twitter.
Because I'm a douchebag.
Musk has a right to post any opinion he wants.
Because of that, henceforward, I am going to call it X. Because of that statement right there. That statement right there.
Musk has a right to post any opinion he wants, ban or unban any users, and promote offensive content. And also, individuals and corporations and advertisers have a right to participate on the platform or not. So in May, the ADL published a report about the rise in anti-Semitic hate speech on
Because the ADL is constantly screaming, wolf, 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 wolf!
the platform. The group pointed out the obvious that by taking away the moderation guardrails, more horrible things were being shared.
So, that's part of free speech.
In June, Musk hired Linda Yaccarino as
Terrible hire. She's terrible.
the new CEO. Now, she doesn't have all of the powers of a normal CEO, but one of her roles was to make good with advertisers. Musk threatened to sue the ADL, but later made nice with the group. Instead, he decided to sue.
I think there's no such thing as hate speech. There's no such thing. There's no such thing at all. No such thing as hate speech or hate crime. That I disagree with. Because sometimes someone is motivated to commit a crime because of their hatred for a particular race. So, hate crime there could be. It's hard to prove. Separation of church and state equals atheist Satanist fiction is not at all a constitutional and or founding principle. Rackets breaks it down well. Yeah, he's right. He has no shame. Exhibit A, that god awful tie. Yeah, is that a locals tie? Is that what that tie is supposed to be? I don't know. I don't know. It looks like it was brought to you by locals.
To a different media watchdog group, the CCDH.
What is the CCDH? I never even heard of the CCDH. CCDH. Let's check this out. CCDH. Center for Countering Digital Hate. Yeah, okay. They probably are big believers in the phrase hate speech.
And at the same time, Elon never stopped promoting conspiracy theories, which brings us to November
Not relevant to this at all, but come on.
15th, 2023, when Musk boosted a post that said Jewish people have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them.
And he did promote it and then explained what he meant and later called it one of the stupidest things he's ever done in his life.
This was a reference to the white genocide or replacement theory.
And spent subsequent tweets trying to explain what he meant, because it was not at all anti-Semitic. Not at all. Even though you're going to try and frame it that it was.
Anti-Semitic delusion that suggests Jews are promoting immigration, same-sex marriage, interracial marriage, and pornography, and other things in order to destroy the white race. Musk appeared to agree with the post about white replacement theory, replying, "You have said the actual truth." This interaction prompted some advertisers to flee Twitter, at least temporarily. And
white replacement theory, by the way, is true. But it's racist to say that it's being done by Jews, because it's factually untrue. And that perspective of it is kind of messed up, because it's implying that it's because they're Jewish that they're promoting it, which is crap. Because there are plenty of white people who are who are not Jewish who support replacement. Plenty of black people, Latinos, everyone. So you're fixating on the fact that you're trying to, the people who make that claim are trying to root it in, there's a Jewish cabal out to get us. So that part of it is motivated by Jew hatred, but that doesn't change the fact that the replacement theory is not just a theory.
on the heels of this event, the liberal advocacy group Media Matters.
And we've seen evidence of it over and over again. I mean, it's not even evidence. We've seen steps taken. We've seen laws implemented to try and basically raise anyone who is not white. I mean, that's part of the whole concept.
Then released a report showing.
My point about like how it's absurd to call out the Jewishness of these folks is that their Jewishness doesn't matter to them at all. The only people it matters to is you. They would be doing it if they were Christian or black or anything else. The implication is designed to say, oh, it's because they're Jewish. And that claim is motivated by Jew hatred. But that's not the point that Elon Musk was making. He specifically said that we've seen a lot of groups that center on the Judaism element of it as a basis to start fighting and basically calling out gynos. He just doesn't. Elon doesn't know the term gyno. I'll teach him. It'll come. I'm getting there.
Showing that posts containing pro-Nazi content appeared on Twitter alongside of advertisements from leading companies.
Which it didn't. That's the point of the lawsuit.
As part of this study, the company created new Twitter accounts and apparently curated the interests of those accounts.
Technical deficiency. Okay.
The company report alleged that, quote, advertisements have also been appearing on pro-Hitler, Holocaust denial, white nationalist, pro-violence, and neo-Nazi accounts.
No, they weren't. They only were appearing on your timeline, not on anyone else's, because you tried to figure out how to create a timeline like that.
Media Matters found ads for Apple, Bravo, Oracle, Xfinity, and IBM next to posts that tout Hitler and his Nazi party on X. You can see screenshots.
Oh, look, he called it X. Whoops. 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 Idea Knowles and Legal Eagles take shrooms and go on a trip to see the source, then straighten their perspectives. That's not a bad idea. Have you seen the hat yet? Damn, Legal Eagle graduated from where? He's so dense. Where did he graduate from? And I don't know what hat you're referring to. I'm not sure what hat you're referring to. What's the shit? Correlation is not causation. Just because some people control the media doesn't mean anything. No, they're not there because they're Jewish. It's not like their Judaism helped them get there, which is what the whole claim when they bring it in is designed to claim. Designed to say. I know you're kidding.
Of these posts here. At this point, I consider displaying the ads in question, but honestly, it's just really sad.
And he was also like really afraid of that he too would be sued. That's why he's not showing it. He's claiming like, oh, I'm above that. I'm above that. No, because he's afraid that this thing's gonna be viewed a million times. And now I'm gonna be doing what Media Matters is doing in promoting that this is actually like a real thing. But instead, I'm going to take the noble route of saying, oh, this is beneath me to do it. As if like a man who wears that tie is anything beneath him.
I don't want to promote these ads, even in this particular context. Just trust me, they're not great. In one of the ads, a user's sad because Nazis aren't running the world. That appears next to an Apple ad. Another tweet is...
And those ads are gross, by the way, obviously.
Talking about how the Third Reich was good, actually, and that appears next to an advert for Xfinity. Bravo and Oracle share space with a user who believes the Holocaust never happened. And as we'll see in the lawsuit, Musk doesn't deny that the ads appeared, only that the Media Matters accounts had a very unusual set of interests that led to a rare algorithmic feed.
But that's not what the whole claim is about.
Now, that report put Media Matters in Musk's crosshairs. He alleged
because they specifically said, hey, this is what's going to happen to you if you promote your stuff there, is your stuff is going to be appearing next to this stuff, which is just not reality.
The real reason advertisers fled was the Media Matters report rather than his own post professing agreement with all of this horribleness. In reality, both events probably played a role, and he promised to file a thermonuclear lawsuit against Media Matters, the second that court opened. Of course, these days, you can file electronically, especially in federal court. You actually don't have to wait until the courthouse opens.
Technically, that's true. That's technically one way you could file it. Another way you could file is in court by waiting for the courthouse to open. So it depends on the court and the attorney.
And shortly thereafter, Musk promoted a Pizzagate meme. So anyway,
Not sure how that's relevant. Maybe he'll bring that home for us.
The thermonuclear lawsuit against Media Matters is now here. And yeah, it is the slappiest slap suit that you can possibly imagine.
Nope. In fact, he's actually going to later admit that it's not a slap suit because there's no anti-slap law that's applicable here. So not sure what he even means by that.
Now we'll talk about the
I guess he's trying to say that if there were anti-slap, it would be not down anti-slap. But it doesn't seem like this anti-slap is going to apply here.
Allegations in a second, but right off the bat, this is not a defamation suit.
Technically, that's true. That's technically true. And the technical element is important. When we're assessing the law, that is an important thing to say. So I'll agree with him for saying that.
Some legal commentators, who should know better, really think that it is a defamation suit. They are really confident in asserting it's a defamation suit, and they are very wrong about that. This particular person is wrong about a lot.
He doesn't like Charles Gasparino. I should follow him. Who's Charles Gasparino? I have to go into my X account. X.com. Charles Gasparino. What's the account? What's it? C. Gasparino? Oh, C. Gasparino. Senior correspondent, New York Post columnist, God, Country, Pull-Ups, and Vodka, in that order. That sounds kind of based. Followed by 83 people who follow me. My general rule of thumb when I'm trying to decide who to follow, because I don't want to be one of those people who have 20,000 people I'm following and 20,000 following me. Because that makes me feel like no one's really following me. They don't really care about what I have to say. So I try to limit in that sense. My general rule of thumb is if someone follows me and they have 100 followers who follow me, then I'm going to follow them back. They're probably someone I never heard of who's kind of based. That's basically how I've been approaching it for like the last year or so. But we're going to give you a follow, Charles, just because you seem to really ruffle his feathers. You really ruffled his feathers. And I think that's funny. I mean, it's funny. It's funny.
A lot of things. But while this lawsuit repeatedly mentions defamation, it does not include a defamation claim.
True.
Instead, there's a cause of action for a tort called business disparagement,
Which is the business form of defamation.
which is similar to defamation,
So you're being a little bit exceedingly technical.
but in the business context with some key differences. Now, the torts of defamation and business disparagement are similar in that they both involve harm from the publication of false information, but they're different in the interest that they seek to protect in the way that they do it. Defamation serves to protect one's interest in character and reputation, whereas business
This is the only thing he has in here, which I think is of value, where he distinguishes between defamation and business disparagement. So let's pay attention here, because this is actually something that can be helpful in giving information about the law that most people may not recognize.
Business disparagement protects economic interest by providing a remedy for pecuniary losses from slurs affecting the marketability of goods and services. Elements of business disparagement are more stringent than those of defamation because business disparagement are similar in that they both involve harm from the publication of false information, but they're different in the interest that they seek to protect in the way that they do it. Defamation serves to protect one's interest in character and reputation, whereas business disparagement protects economic interest by providing a remedy for pecuniary losses from slurs affecting the marketability of goods and services.
So the point is, really, they both protect your economic interests. So I don't really like the way he words this whole thing. They're both protecting your economic interests, but the point is that it's not simply your economic interest and it's business disparagement, but it's also the impact on your marketability of your goods and services. So I think he would agree that that's really what Elon's claim is really all about, because Media Matters is harming the marketability.
Elements of business disparagement are more stringent than those of defamation because business disparagement protects against pecuniary losses.
In other words, it's more global in the remedies.
So the publication of a disparaging statement concerning the product of another is actionable when the statement is false, published.
And this is where we're going to fixate on number one. The statement is false. That's what he's going to fixate on. And he's going to fixate on the wrong part of the statement when he's trying to figure out whether or not the statement is false. I'm giving you a spoiler alert here. He's going to fixate on the wrong part. I don't know if it's because he's stupid. I don't know if it's because he's motivated by agenda or some combination of those two. But he fixates on the wrong place in order to say this is a dud.
With malice, with the intent that the publication cause pecuniary loss or the reasonable recognition that it will.
Which, assuming the statement is false, it definitely was with knowledge, which is what malice means. Like knowing the falsity of it, and they expressly said that they had an intent to cause pecuniary loss.
And pecuniary losses do in fact result.
That's going to be the hardest part for Elon, is that pecuniary loss resulted. as a result of Media Matters.
Now, the actual malice standard does apply because the plaintiff here is a public figure, and merely showing ill will or intent to interfere with the plaintiff's economic interest is not sufficient to establish malice. So, like defamation, a business disparagement defendant may only be held liable if the defendant knew of the falsity or acted with reckless disregard concerning it.
But knowing of the falsity is not going to be a problem here.
Or if he or she acted with ill will or intended to interfere in the economic interest of the plaintiff in an unprivileged fashion.
Precisely what was alleged in the complaint, that they intentionally did this inorganically and then portrayed it as if it was organic.
And as always, a showing of truth of an allegedly defamatory statement negates the element of falsity for a business disparagement claim.
Okay.
So what are the allegations against Media Matters and its reporter? Well, the lawsuit alleges that Media Matters systematically manipulated the Twitter experience in order to defame Twitter. Now, as always, a complaint is a one-sided document that simply represents the story of the plaintiff, so it's no guarantee that it's accurate.
That's true.
But here the complaint says, quote, on November 16th, 2023, Media Matters published a false, defamatory, and misleading article with the headline, X has been placing ads for Apple, Bravo, IBM, Oracle, and Xfinity next to pro-Nazi content.
Placing ads, meaning they've been putting the placement of the ad. They've been setting up the placement of the ad next to pro-Nazi content. That is the key part here. It's even in italics. X has been placing ads. Notice how you see there how it's italicized? Italicized? Because that is the part that his attorneys are fixating on. That X is the one who has been placing those ads there. They could have placed it anywhere, but X chose to place those ads next to pro-Nazi content. That is the false statement. Right there. That's the false statement. Because that's saying that X chose to put ad A next to ad B. And that is not true.
Claiming that X was responsible for anti-Semitic content being paired with X's advertisers' paid posts. This statement was not true, and Media Matters knew it. As explained below and displayed in an X internal review, this title is false in that Media Matters itself, not X, was responsible for placement of the content and identified through its willful exploitation of X's user features, a result it specifically intended to bring about. X, in fact, has many default safeguards that prevent the platform from displaying content in the manner artificially achieved by defendant. So the crux of this claim is that Media Matters created Twitter accounts and then followed fringe accounts with the expectation that eventually offensive content would appear next to the ads. In other words, Twitter didn't deliberately place advertisements next to offensive content. Media Matters created the conditions that caused the ads to appear. Quote, Media Matters did not find pairings that X passively allowed on the platform. Media Matters created the pairings in secrecy to manufacture the harmful perception that X is at best an incompetent content moderator, a harmful accusation for any social media platform, or even worse, that X was somehow indifferent or even encouraging to Nazi and racist ideology. Now, other than the legal conclusions and
which is kind of what he's doing throughout this entire video.
Certain adjectives that are being used here, I actually don't think that Media Matters would disagree with the facts as laid out in this allegation.
Which is why this is an open and shut case, that they're liable.
It's true that Media Matters created the conditions for the pairings to appear by using the platform as it is permitted to be used, by following accounts the user is interested in. The complaint says that Media Matters used the platform in a way the platform is able to be used, but that it did so with bad intentions. Quote, next, Media Matters set its account.
That's not the issue. The issue is who placed the ads. Who placed these ads there?
To follow only 30 users, far less than the average number of accounts followed by a typical active
And these are the steps that Media Matters took to place the ads next to each other.
user, 219, severely limiting the amount and type of content featured on its feed. All of these users were either already known for posting controversial content or were accounts for X's advertisers. That is, 100% of the accounts Media Matters followed were either fringe accounts or were accounts for national large brands. In all, this functioned as an attempt to flood the Media Matters account with content only from national brands and fringe figures, tricking the algorithm into thinking Media Matters wanted to view both hateful content and content from large advertisers. Now, this comment about tricking the algorithm is interesting. Now, metaphysically, I'm not sure that there is a thing that can be done to trick an algorithm.
That's not the essence of the claim. That's not the essence. The point is that they tried to work the way around, use the algorithm, and overcome built-in protections that X put in the algorithm. That's what they were doing.
I'm not sure that that's a thing that exists in the universe, but Twitter admits that users.
He's trying to like get like a ha 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 ha. You're using a phrase that doesn't really make sense. Okay. Hopefully, Media Matters hires you, Devin.
Followed by Media Matters are known to post controversial content. The beef here is that what Media Matters did is inauthentic and inorganic. But of course, because
it's not that it's inauthentic. No, that's not the beef. That's not the beef. The beef is that they said X places these ads next to each other. That's why it's a business disparagement claim. It's that the statement that they wrote that X placed them next to each other is false. And it is false. X didn't do that. X did everything to avoid, everything humanly possible to avoid those ads being placed next to each other. In the lawsuit, they actually go through all the steps that they have to enable them to be curated to never show up next to each other.
Elon Musk, or as some people are called,
which is why, and they were successful in it, in that it only appeared once in 500 million times. Understand what 1 in 500 million is? There's only 330 million Americans. That's what 1 in 500 million. It's like there's not even an American for every possibility there. You have to like reach into Europe. Or I don't know, into the Congo jungle to find anyone who actually saw what they saw.
Calling him now Space Karen, because he pushed back. That has caused lots and lots of other.
Does the Congo have jungles? Oh, it's in the middle of the Sahara, isn't it? The Congo. It's. Is there a Congo jungle? It sounds like something this should be, but then it sounds like something that's impossible to be. I'm so torn about whether there are jungles in the Congo, and I refuse to actually Google that question. But I am wondering if there are jungles in the Congo. I know, like in South America, there's jungles everywhere. I mean, the whole place is a jungle. But yeah, I don't know about like Congo. I'm getting a lot of yeses.
Other people to go digging for other examples. And as Mike Masnick has pointed out, they found them. A lot of them. So many of them. Now, lots of Twitter users are reporting that they found offensive content next to ads.
Where? Offensive? It's a hashtag? A hashtag? A hashtag is not an ad.
As the Daily Dot pointed out, a bunch of users started looking around and found that ads were being served next to the tag Heil Hitler and Kill Jews, among other neo-Nazi content and accounts. And it seems these users didn't engage in any of the manipulative or inorganic actions that X accused Media Matters of.
That's not advertisements, which is what the headline says. Placed ads next to each other. See, that's two different things there. So not relevant.
Using. They just followed vile hashtags and found monetized content. So the complaint continued, but this activity still was not enough to create the pairings of advertisements and content that Media Matters aimed to produce. Media Matters therefore resorted to endlessly scrolling and refreshing its unrepresentative, hand-selected feed, generating between 13 and 15 times more advertising.
You think Devin's going to highlight the parts where it says 1 in 500 million? Because that's what I was waiting for when I was watching this video the first time. I was like, get to the 1 in 500 million and tell us how normal that is, how natural that is. How that wasn't Media Matters itself placing it rather than X placing it. But he doesn't get there. Somehow he never gets there.
Advertisements per hour, then viewed by the average X user, repeating this inauthentic activity until it finally received pages containing the result it wanted, controversial content next to X's largest advertisers' paid posts. But it appears that Media Matters did not falsely report on the content that was found on the platform. It reported what it saw after it created the accounts. But it's not surprising to find racist or anti-Semitic content on social media platforms. Even with aggressive moderation, some posts will still get through. But Elon Musk and Twitter seem to be claiming that it's not fair for Media Matters to draw attention to these racist needles in the haystack. It doesn't seem like that satisfies the standard for making a false statement.
That's the false statement is who placed the ads. because you're saying this is what X does. If you're going to advertise with them, they're going to place your ad next to some neo-Nazi content. That's what Media Matters claimed, and that is a false statement. Hence, which was designed to cause them pecuniary loss. You haven't, it's like, what part of that are you missing? You're sitting here saying, well, you know, they worked within the system that's allowed there. That doesn't mean they're placing the ads there.
Now, Elon Musk claims to be a champion of free speech, but of course, he filed a lawsuit to stifle the free speech of Media Matters.
Because it was a lie. That was the point. Free speech doesn't mean that you're free from any damages for lying. Like, what, this is such a disservice that he's doing to his own viewers here. Like, all leftists, whatever they're sitting here trying to basically, whatever they're trying to promote, at the end of the day, the biggest victims are the people that they're trying to help. Here, he's trying to help his audience by educating them, and he's misleading them. That's what he's doing, because now he's misleading them about what free speech is. That's his help. Let me help you by completely misleading you as to what free speech actually means. And another thing is, you started off by pointing out that free speech is an issue that relates to government, not to private actors.
Claiming that they have disparaged the company by using the site in an inorganic way, by repeatedly scrolling and refreshing until they saw what they'd hoped to find. Quote, Media Matters generated a specific intended result that was not only inorganic.
He jumps all over the place. He was just in paragraph 9, now he's in paragraph 33. He's all over the place.
But exceedingly and demonstrably rare, all while taking specific steps to obscure this in a November 16th.
Devin makes the world a dumber place. That's essentially what I could have called this video. Devin makes the world a dumber place.
2023 article. The overall effect on advertisers and users was to create the false and misleading perception that these types of pairings were common, widespread, and alarming. Media Matters hid its manipulations through omissions, deceptive image selections, misrepresentations, and secrecy settings. Musk says that Twitter safety measures, quote, under normal organic conditions operate seamlessly, contradicting seemingly every single Twitter user's daily experience. Now, as a viewer of Legal Eagle, you're probably not only very smart and very good looking, and you've probably already spotted the problem with Twitter's claims here. It admits that what Media Matters reported was actually true.
Nope.
Twitter calls them.
Nope. That's not what it admits. It admits that they managed to generate it, but not that they placed it there. Idiot.
The confluence of events that led to the advertising.
He's so dishonest. This is so dishonest. This is so, you're just a liar, Devin. At this point, you're just lying.
Context rare and inorganic, but rare and inorganic is not the same as false. It's
saying who's placing it. That's the point. That's the point.
It's actually more like the opposite of.
There's a reason the headline wasn't we managed to figure out how to overcome X's hurdles in their algorithm to get these things together, because no one would care about that. No one would care about that at all.
False. And as far as I can tell, Media Matters never made any claims about the frequency with which advertisers' advertisements appear alongside offensive content. And as Mike Masnick of TechDirt put it, quote, Media Matters never made any such claim about how frequently such ads showed up. And
the question is, who's placing them?
And as IBM noted in pulling its ads, it wants a zero tolerance policy on its ads showing up next to Nazi content, meaning that even if it's true that only Media Matters employees saw that content, that's still one too many people.
No, nope, because they're not saying that's the stupidest thing in the world, because by that logic, if they had actually cut and pasted and put them together, in that case, they also would have a problem with that also. It's ridiculous. That's such a stupid statement. It's such an empty statement. Oh my gosh. Thoroughly empty. So if I take some neo-Nazi advertisement and then I clip that out, and then I have another thing from Twitter where it's like some Twitter ad for Xfinity, and then I make some Photoshop and putting them together, that's going to bother Xfinity? So stupid.
You might remember Mike as the guy that coined the term the Streisand effect. I wonder if that term applies here. Now, the other two claims in this
I don't see how it does. I don't see how it does, but okay.
Lawsuit are for interference with contract and interference with prospective economic advantage. Now, to prevail on a claim for tortious interference with a business relationship in Texas, a plaintiff must show that the defendant intentionally prevented the formation of the business relationship or contract, and that's not easy to prove. A plaintiff must establish that there's a reasonable probability that the participating parties would have finalized an agreement or business relationship, but for the meddling of the defendant. And crucially, the plaintiff also has to show some sort of willful and intentional, independently tortious act of interference that caused the damages to the other parties or to prevent the contract or business relationship. In other words,
And that comes back to the defamation. That comes back to that's the tortious conduct, is the defamation. So ultimately, it comes back to whether this is true or false.
generally speaking, anyone can interfere with someone else's contract. You just can't go about doing it illegally in the first place. Now, you might have noticed that this lawsuit was filed in federal court in Texas, but you might not immediately know why. First-year law students learn all about the different ways.
And the rest of his fixation here is going to be about the filing in Texas and long-arm statutes and whether it's going to stay there. Which this actually is where he starts presenting perspectives that have stronger basis in law. Ironically, the ad was for IBM's punch card tech. Really? Oh, I missed a few of these. Funny, claiming Elon's an anti-Semite, also Jewish. Is he Jewish? He's not Jewish, is he? He's not Jewish. I don't think he's Jewish. Yes, lawyers disagree. However, this is distortion of reality. Is he a paid cuck? I think he's going where the bread is being buttered. That's what I suspect. Political science undergrad, then UCLA law. So typical brainwashed lib. Arg, my blood pressure can't take. Just keep saying no such thing as hate speech. No such thing as hate speech. Say it with me. There's no such thing as hate speech. There's no such thing as hate speech. There's no such thing as hate speech. The objectionable posts were not ads, right? That's correct. You hit on the same thing I did. LexisNexis plus green screen costs far less than books. It does look really fake, doesn't it? Hellpike, the way you're destroying this guy, fire. This is us in the chat. You are the man, dude. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. He deserves to be destroyed.
The court has personal and subject matter jurisdiction, and this takes weeks to learn. But here's a very fast rundown. Personal jurisdiction is the court's ability to exercise jurisdiction over the rights and responsibilities of a person.
That's correct.
Subject matter jurisdiction is the requirement that a given court has the power to hear the specific kind of claim that's being brought in that court.
That's correct, too.
Federal courts have subject matter jurisdiction where there is a federal question or where the plaintiffs and defendants are all domiciled in different states.
Meaning, is a federal court allowed to hear this or not? He's about to explain diversity and how that gets you into federal court, and he's correct about that as well.
States. Now, one form of subject matter jurisdiction is called diversity, where parties are from different states. And here, Twitter is a Nevada corporation with its principal place of business in California, and Media Matters is a Washington, D.C. corporation. So the elements of diversity seem to be met. But it doesn't appear that there's any personal jurisdiction in Texas because nothing appears to have happened in Texas.
Now, he's getting this a little bit wrong. He's close, but he's getting it a little bit wrong because the question is not whether this is because on personal jurisdiction, you probably can get personal jurisdiction over any one of them because of their advertising to and the fact that they're promoting in any state. So that means that Texas is really no worse than New York or Montana. And this is something that gets litigated all the time, because the plaintiff will invariably, if they have money, certainly engage in forum shopping. And we saw this, most notably with Johnny Depp, right? Where they're out in California, the Washington Post thing is in DC, and he sues in Virginia. And we saw that he managed to hold up and get it held in Virginia. What was the basis? Well, people in Virginia read it, and they're advertising to people in Virginia. They're purposefully availing themselves of Virginia. They managed to stay in Virginia, and that was very important for him to get the outcome that he got.
It's possible that courts might exercise what's called long-arm jurisdiction here, but basically because nothing happened in Texas, I would expect a motion to dismiss to get it out of the Texas court in the first instance.
I think the motion will come. I think he's correct. I agree with him that there will be a motion. If I was representing the defendant, I would be bringing a motion. I'm just not positive that the motion is going to succeed it really is going to come down to the judge in federal court as to whether or not that motion succeeds, because there's a lot of different ways to slice this, to slice that pie, as to whether or not that motion will be successful. So if it doesn't succeed, I think Elon's got a really good shot here. If it does succeed and they get it out to Maryland or whatever, he's going to have problems if he tries litigating this in federal court in Maryland.
But there are some very good reasons why Elon Musk wants this case specifically in Texas instead of California, even in federal court. One reason is that this case could eventually...
California would be a disaster. He's sitting here saying that he's fixating on the law. No, it's a matter of the fact that I think that Elon's attorneys correctly are concerned that that there's going to be biases and there's going to be a whole bunch of Devons sitting there in the California courthouse.
Will be heard by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which has issued some bonkers opinions related to free speech and
that's subjective.
And social media companies. Now, some of the more astute viewers might be wondering whether Texas has an anti-SLAPP law. And the answer is they actually do, a pretty good one. But
this part that he's saying here was information I did not have before I watched this video. And I thought this was interesting. So that's why we're going to keep watching this.
As some people may be shouting at the screen right now, one of the Fifth Circuit's less bonker decisions involves the application of the Texas anti-SLAPP laws. Basically, the Fifth Circuit has ruled that the state's anti-SLAPP laws do not apply in federal court. Typically, when someone is sued for defamation or something like defamation, they can argue that it's an attack on free speech and get the lawsuit dismissed early in the process.
Now, here, in case you're unfamiliar with what the anti-SLAPP laws are, so SLAPP is an acronym, which you'll hear the phrase sometimes slap suit, which is spelled with 2 P's. And what does it stand for? What does it stand for? Strategic lawsuit against protected speech? That doesn't sound right. What does the acronym stand for? Let me get that. Public participation. No, I should have gotten that one. So what does that mean? It means that someone is starting a lawsuit because they want to silence me, not because they actually have a real claim, but they're just looking to silence me, and that's affecting my First Amendment rights. So there's something called anti-SLAPP suits, anti-SLAPP motions, which some states have enacted laws that say that because we're so interested in protecting the First Amendment and not having people be strategically stopped by a lawsuit from engaging in their freedom of speech, we're going to take our normal practice of how we have a motion to dismiss and expedite that along. And we're going to basically make the plaintiff establish that this is not some sort of slap suit, some sort of empty, meaningless thing designed to use your money in order to silence someone who's properly engaging in their First Amendment rights, but that you have legitimate beef here. The problem so what do? They put in all these different things to say at the outset, you have the burden of establishing that you're likely going to win here. And if you can't, you even can get hit with legal fees, and there's all sorts of different issues. The problem with anti-SLAPP is that you don't frequently, in order to establish that there was an intent, especially when you combine that with a malice requirement in defamation. So when you're dealing with SLAPP, when you're dealing with anti-SLAPP, you don't get a chance to do discovery. So how are you going to prove that this person knew there was malice there, and there was an actual disregard for the truth? Usually that's a problem for a plaintiff, which is why I think that the marriage between defamation malice laws and anti-SLAPP combines to basically enable people to defame whoever the hell they want, all too frequently. In this context, even if he was faced with an anti-SLAPP suit, an anti-SLAPP motion, I think he would probably overcome it. And the reason I think he would probably overcome it, at least if he's before an unbiased judge, or he's not sitting in front of Devin over here. So the reason I think that he would have more success here is because there's such strong evidence that they manipulated based on the percentages. That's 1 in 500 million, or 2 in 500 million with another post. That there's no way that's statistically possible unless they actually took the steps that they took. So So that when they're saying X is the one who placed it, that cannot possibly be true because this doesn't happen organically. It happened inorganically. So then you knew it was inorganic, and you still claim that X is the one who placed it. So I think they would overcome an anti-SLAPP suit. But he's about to explain why an anti-SLAPP motion. But he's about to explain why there is no anti-SLAPP possibility here. And this is the interesting thing, which a lot of states, so not every state has anti-SLAPP motion. Everyone has motions to dismiss, but not anti-SLAPP motions. The other thing about anti-SLAPP versus motion to dismiss is motion to dismiss, there's a lot more burden on the defendant to establish that there's no way they could possibly win, or this doesn't articulate the claim. It's not sufficiently, their claims are not sufficiently articulated to withstand to proceed in court. The burden being on the defendant. In an anti-SLAPP motion, the burden is really on the plaintiff. So he's about to explain an interesting thing about how anti-SLAPP works in federal court, which I think is important.
That's the point of an anti-SLAPP law. But by filing the complaint in Texas federal court, Musk ensured that Media Matters would not be able to use the state law. And as I said, Texas has a pretty good anti-SLAPP law. The Texas Citizens Participation Act was enacted to deter meritless lawsuits. It allows defendants to file a motion to dismiss a legal action that infringes on the rights to free speech. And a defamation or disparagement lawsuit is the classic kind of lawsuit that should get dismissed by an anti-SLAPP law.
If it's wrongful.
Motion can be filed early on in the legal process, often before the case proceeds to expensive and costly discovery. However, because Elon Musk filed in federal court, Media Matters will not be able to use the TCPA to defend against the lawsuit. That's because a 2019 Fifth Circuit ruling stated that that particular state law doesn't apply in federal court. That's because the Fifth Circuit, also with a number of other federal circuits, have decided that the state law is in conflict with the federal rules of civil procedure because the TCPA operates without pre-decisional discovery. So,
Okay. So I want to...
Media Matters will not be able to use the anti-SLAPP law to fight this SLAPP lawsuit.
That's not a SLAPP lawsuit. That's your problem, loser. So, okay. What he's saying here, this is an important legal element, which you need to, if you want to understand this, you have to understand a little bit about the way civil procedure works in federal, in state law versus federal law. So I'll just give you a little bit of an explanation here so that you can better understand what he just crammed together in 15 seconds. Every state has their own rules of civil procedure. That is the rules that govern how our state is going, what motions you can bring, timing for things, statute limitations. Those are your state laws of civil procedure. I practice in New York. The state laws of civil procedure are referred to as the CPLR, which is Civil Practices, Laws, and Regulations. And that tells us what steps, what are the procedure for filing a lawsuit or using the law as necessary to get remedy and relief that you need. So that's let's assume that there's something similar in Texas. The Texas CPLR. Then those procedures are specific for state court. Then there's also the federal rules of civil procedure, AFRCP. The federal rules of civil procedure are going to be different. An anti-SLAPP statute is a state saying that our state's civil process will have this new added feature, this new added wrinkle that did not exist before, that if someone is a litigant in state court, they can avail themselves of this new wrinkle. Normally, with most laws, if you are suing under a diversity action, meaning it's not an issue of federal question, but you're saying, I'm getting in here because he's from one state, I'm from a different state, and that's why we're coming to federal court. Normally, the state laws govern. If there's a difference between the state of New York and Texas, the state laws will govern what applies. So now what happens with these anti-SLAPP laws is the state's civil procedure going to come in now and work when you go into federal court. And the Fifth Circuit said, we're not going to allow you to do that. And the reason we're not going to allow you to do that, even though in many regards we'll use Texas state law, but when it comes to their anti-SLAPP law, we're not going to allow you to do that because that violates our federal laws. Our federal laws have a whole motion practice set up for how you can move to dismiss something. And part of that motion practice is that you have a right to do discovery before you put the onus on the plaintiff here to keep his case alive. So since anti-SLAPP statutes strip the litigant of the right to engage in discovery to establish that there was actual malice or what was happening there, what was going on in the mind of the defendant, that's now violating the rules of federal rules of civil procedure. And accordingly, anti-SLAPP laws cannot work in federal court because you're depriving them of their rights as a federal litigant, their right to get discovery in order to prove to the court that their case should be able to proceed to trial. So that's how the Fifth Circuit decided. Not all circuits, there's actually a circuit split on this issue. Some circuits say, you know what, even though in federal laws there's no such thing as we don't have anti-SLAPP, but since this is in the state of New Jersey, we'll allow it to proceed. And I'm pretty sure the Second Circuit has said that. It's a difference between the Second Circuit and the Fifth Circuit. We really need the Supreme Court to weigh in and let us know which way it is. And I hope that they go with the Fifth Circuit method, because I think that's a more logical perspective.
Now, Elon Musk has said that he may require Twitter users to provide identification to verify their identity, which sounds horrible for several reasons, including because it's probably only a matter of time before Twitter's data is hacked, which is why I use today's sponsor, Incogni. Incogni removes your personal data from online data brokers. They'll reach out and make sure it's taken down. And if these data brokers object, which I've personally addresses, contact a wide range of reduces the risk of your information being part of a data breach. And part of a data breach.
Data breach.
Data brokers are required to remove your personal information to work on your behalf. Incogni with scam calls. Here's mine. Was rated 10 at Incogni. Get them to delete that info one by and use the code LegalEagle at checkout.
Lord, you suck. Okay, so there you go. There you go. Terrible, 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 terrible. My God, he's awful. He's so bad. I don't know how this guy has a job. How does he have a job? Someone tell me. How does he have a job? Rivka, the Jade Gamer, says everyone should read Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins at least once in their life. I've never read that, actually. I've never heard of that. I don't even know what that is. So I cannot confirm or deny. But okay. Musk lives in Boca Chica, Texas. Yeah, but that doesn't help because he's not the one who's suing. So it's X that's suing, not Musk. So just because its CEO happens to live there, it doesn't help. That doesn't help keep it in Texas. Unless you say that he's a witness and there's convenience of the witnesses, maybe. It's going to be on weak grounds, though. That's weak. Legally, is disgusting shyster lawyer. I can't stand listening to him lying. What's wrong with him? Did he go to law school? I think he did. I think we saw someone who said that he went to UCLA. So he's basically become a woke loser. That's what he is, a woke loser. All right. That covered that. That covered this. And oh my God, there's all these different things that I missed with my diggers. My diggers went nuts before. Whole bunch of things for my diggers. Let me get to my diggers now. I apologize, diggers. All right. So Big Poop says, I don't like it, but if we allow one religion to display in government buildings, then all are allowed. On the other side, they have been pushing to remove religious displays in government buildings. This would logically have to fall under this as well. Well, yeah, I agree with that. It's the same idea as offensive speech is still protected speech. Triggered says, I gave him a headache. I'm sorry, Triggered. Fans says, all crimes are motivated by hate. I don't go and kill someone because I love them or steal from them because I love them. Yeah, but motivated by hate, that's when they say there's been definitions of crimes motivated by racism as being like a hate crime. There's actually a defined thing. That doesn't apply to hate speech. That's why I'm saying there is such a thing as a hate crime. There's no such thing as hate speech. There's no such thing as hate speech. There's no such thing as hate speech. Rivka says, it's a book I read in elementary school about a town afraid to celebrate Hanukkah because some goblins always show up to break the candles steal the donuts, etc. That doesn't sound like a happy book. Oh, look at that. 73 likes on Rumble. See, I told you. I told you. It's always right in that zone right there. I don't know what the deal is. I don't get it. You people. It's those people. Those people would. In all the years of Seinfeld, I'm going to tell you this. All the years of Seinfeld, one of the funniest lines that just kills me, and I've thrown it out so many times, is there's an episode of Seinfeld where George and his parents come to have dinner with his fiancee Susan and her parents, and they bring a marble rye as a gift. And when George is driving back home with his parents, he sees the marble rye in the back seat. He's like, what's this doing here? Didn't you give this to them? So his father's like, it wasn't good enough for them to serve. We took it back. He's like, you stole their marble rye. It's not good enough for them to serve. I'm taking it back. And then they cut over to Susan sitting there with their parents, and her mother's like, oh, I forgot to serve their stupid bread. So he's like, where is it? It's like, I don't know. It's like, you think they took back? You think they took it back? No one would do that. And then one of them was like, who would steal a marble rye? And the father just goes, those people would. Look at disgust. Those people would. So there you go. I've used those people would a lot of times. So is Lady Lawgic. Those people would. Best line ever from that show. To me, that's my favorite line. I think that's my favorite line from the entire series. Anyhow, that is our stream. I think that's our show. I think we did good work tonight. I think we did really good work tonight. It's time for me to move on. Move along. Say my goodbyes. To do a little recap here. Have some good times. I don't know if Nick works anymore. I don't think he does. He hasn't even put up a stream yet. Poor man. All right. So, happy recap here is Legal Illegal is an idiot. Michael Knowles got it wrong. And if you want this and more valuable insights, you can find that at goodlogic.locals.com. That's goodlogic.locals.com. I'm going to urge you all to make sure that it's the holiday season. Don't let life get you down. Be happy. Eat some bugs. And as always, Godspeed.